tribes of Israel, have we not? It'd be nice if I get my Bible up here with it. And there have been so many meaty things that I have seen in this study. Of course, I've been studying. I went back and did the overview for all of the lessons that Jim brought to put it into little bullet points. And then just to try to get it inside my heart, just to try to understand, okay, what's the flow of this? Sometimes it feels kind of broken up in pieces, but I needed to have some cohesion. So I went back and began to look at all of the different chapters that we've been through. And that's the notes that we sent out to you last week. And so we are here to VaYigash. And I know Jim knows what this means. And of course you have it here, maybe not. It's all right. VaYigash. And you know I intended to bring my little laser pointer and I didn't do it. Of course I pack everything, so. You know how you can tell when you've got a Judah in your midst? They bring the world with them. They bring the farm. And so you see, I come in and I take over because I've got all this stuff. I'm trying to be prepared. And so this is a mark of Judah. Okay, well, VaYigash, he drew near. So this is the actual Hebrew rendering of what this word VaYigash means, or is. He drew near. Is there a psalm, not a psalm, is there a scripture in the New Covenant that reminds you of this when he drew near? Maybe in James? Draw near to me and I will, what's the rest of that? If you draw near to me, Abba says, I will what? He'll draw nigh to you, right? So that's the key. So, well, this is not exactly what this is, but it's just one of those things. Now, when I started this study, I started looking at the different ways that the rabbis teach. The rabbis have 4 different ways that they hit things. The first thing, they call it the Pashat, which is the very simple way. You won't have that up here yet. It's the very simple way. You might see if you could find that slide, Curtis, Pashat. It's going to be the breakdown of the 4. Maybe look something like that. Yeah, that's all right. Just look for it. The rabbis will look at the surface meaning. So when you read through the Genesis account, I can't do that. Give me a boundary. When you read through the Genesis account, you're going to look at just what the literal understanding is. That is what they call the Pashat. That is a simple rendering of the word. And it goes into the part of your soul that prepares you for action. The second part that they look for, and this is when they do the Talmudim, which is their students. That's the Hebrew word for students. It's when they have someone who will be discipled. And so he has this student coming, and they're going through the Torah every year, and they're going into the things of the Spirit. And one year, because of the immaturity of the one he is teaching, he will go to the simple level, like the parables that Yeshua would use. He would go to the simple level to give them a comparison so they can see, okay, it's like this. Oh, okay, because they've never seen the spiritual things, so he gives them something they can relate to. So this is part of what the rabbis do. Remez is a hint. It goes into the emotion of the soul. It'll help get you ready for those things that have to do with what's going on, the Old Covenant and the New Covenant, what's going on now in history. And then you go into Drash, which is to search out. This is where you're looking for understanding. I know through Psalms 119, all over the place, it's saying, when you have understanding, you'll obey his word. You can't obey what you don't understand. A little hard, okay? And so Abba is always trying to help us come to an understanding. Some people never come to an understanding because they don't want to. They don't want to be obedient. And rebellion is one of the marks that will keep a person from seeking out for understanding and wisdom. Because they're not going to play the game that way, right? They got their own way of playing it. Okay, so the third is going to bring you into that place of action, into the present. What's the moral of the story? And you won't have those on your notes right there. The sod is the hidden. This is where you find the wisdom of things. Okay, I got to remember not to do that. This is where you find the wisdom of things, the sod. It's the prophetic. It's the things that haven't happened yet. They're the secrets. They're the things that are going to be unfolded and revealed to you. This is what I love about looking at the Old Covenant and seeing the New Covenant come into play, because I see Yeshua hidden in the Old Covenant, and I see Yeshua revealed in the New Covenant, and I'm saying, how can people not see this? Well, if they're not seeing, there's probably a blinder over their minds, over their hearts. Abba has done that for a time, on purpose. So these are the 4 levels of teaching, and I was very taken by this. Now let me read to you what this says. The first is simply the literal interpretation of the events of the story for historical purposes with no underlying meaning. The second is called typological. It connects the events of the Old Testament and the New Testament, in particular drawing allegorical connections between the events of Messiah's life and the stories of the Old Covenant. The third is moral or topological, which is how one should act in the present, the moral of the story. And the fourth is the interpretation, analogical, dealing with the future events of Christian history, heaven, hell, the last judgment. It deals with prophecies. So you can imagine where my heart is aimed. Why would I be interested in prophecies? Why would that even be relevant for me? Pardon me? To know the seasons. Okay. What does it say to you about the Spirit of God to know prophecies? Does it show you His faithfulness? That He said it in the beginning and now this is the season for it to be revealed and unfolded? See, we're coming into one of the most exciting times. Is it going to be painful? Oh, yeah. See, because it's going to require us to die to us. We've been hearing that from Mike all along, haven't we? We've got to die to us. We've got to die to those selfish inclinations because, folks, we had a little taste of the ice storm. What happens down the road, and it may not be too far down the road, when you've got a family dragging their 4 kids to your house and they have no food, they have no house, they have no water? Are you going to shut the door in their face and say, see ya? This is a conditioning ground that we're in right now. It's to get us to the place that, okay, it might be uncomfortable, it might be inconvenient, we might have only enough for ourselves. But when you start mixing faith in what Abba is about to do, you'll find out He will multiply what you've got again and again and again beyond what your mind could even imagine or think. Now, this has nothing to do with what I had up here, does it? I'm trying to get to a point. See, why are we even concerned about Israel? I know some people are thinking, well, you're trying to go back under the law. Trust me, I am not ready to go back under the law. But if I'm not under the Torah, Scripture says I am lawless. I don't want to be named among those who are called lawless. I want to be among those who are obedient to the things of the covenant, things of the Spirit. So that's where my heart comes from when people say, well, you're trying to get back under the law. You're trying to be a Jew. No, but I have been engrafted to an olive tree that has such richness and such fatness, and there are things in that olive tree that I haven't even begun to know are there, and I am partaking of that nourishment that the Jews have had all these years. Now, one of the reasons I do handout sheets like this, so I can pass them out to you when we get ready to pass them out, is because I know me. And I depend on following the lead of the Holy Spirit. You can take notes home and you can read. You don't need me to stand here and read to you. But what I do want to do is yield myself to the Spirit and flow in His water course. And peradventure, if I can do that, you'll have life that comes out of this. And I'm not inferring that if you read notes from somebody, you're not going to get life. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying for me, His method through me is to yield to the Spirit, give you the goods. You could go back and look at what I didn't cover. This is the reference for what maybe we did cover. You see what I'm saying? And it frees me up. Just like Debbie back there trying to get this stuff together, and something is missing and she can't find the part she needs, and I know the pressure that puts on you. I was leading praise and worship at Ed Harris's congregation back in 2011. I was the one that was supposed to do the praise and worship. Gary and I had to travel from Arlington over to Irving. The traffic was horrible. Every place we went, it was blocked. Traffic did not move. We went another way, got in another one. Traffic did not move. I'm supposed to open the service with praise and worship. Folks, I was not doing well. I was having a meltdown with the stress and the pressure on me because I knew I was expected and I could not get there. I had not learned how to roll that thing over in spite of the fact that I was going to be late, because I knew the leadership expected me to get there on time, and I wasn't. And so I know that pressure, Deb. That's why I say it's all good. It doesn't matter if it works or not. It doesn't matter if we're there or not. It doesn't matter if there's a microphone. It doesn't matter. We're here, he says, where 2 or 3 are gathered. He's here in our midst. We're here, we're searching for the deep things of Abba. We're trying to see the Savior. Are we not? Don't we need to know about him? Don't we need to learn the fear of the Lord? We have to be taught the fear of the Lord. It doesn't just happen because we say we're a believer. Oh, now I fear God. No, you fear God when you read what happens when they didn't agree or they didn't obey. That's when you fear God. You fear God when you see the terrible things that he can do when he has to. That's when you fear God. And I don't mean the cringing, craving, crawl in a hole fear of God. I'm talking about the reverential awe and respect. The prophetic scriptures tell us that Abba has a controversy with people in the land. Now, if he has a controversy with us in the land, wouldn't you want to know what that was so you can get out of being in the midst of that controversy? Wouldn't you? I do. He says there's no fear of God in the land. Because, see, if you fear God, you'll depart from evil. If you'll fear God, you will not sin. If you fear God, if you understand about covenant, and that's where I believe we're going to go today. If you understand about covenant, you know what? You think twice before you decide you're going to walk off from that marriage. Because now it's not just a contract, and it's not just an agreement where 2 people have come together for however long you can tolerate each other. You are held together because of contract, and this is the punishment if you break contract. See, Western mindset, we have no idea about covenant. So I'm going to try to get back on track here in a minute. But right now I'm just in the place of exhortation. We have no clue about covenant. If we can learn covenant, and what I was describing to you a while ago, you have a lady come along and she's got 4 kids in tow. She has no place to live. She has no food. She has no nothing. Covenant opens the door and says, what's mine is yours. That's covenant living. And that's what Abba is trying to train his people, his body, to come into, so that when that eventuality comes, we can be that type and shadow of Messiah to reach and help preserve life. Is it amazing to you, now we've been talking about Joseph for weeks, is it amazing to you that Joseph at 30 years old had the maturity to know that you meant it for harm, brothers, but God meant it for good so that he could preserve many alive? Genesis 50. See, he said, he already knew. Don't let this concern you that you tried to kill me. Don't let it concern you that you put me in a pit and then you sold me in slavery and then I was locked up for years. Now that's a case for bitterness. But in that time of being in prison, in that time of waiting on Abba, Abba was able to do a work in Joseph's heart. So when he was put in a place where he could make a difference with his brothers, he didn't go back into that soulish cycle that happens when we have resentment and anger and unforgiveness and all that other ites that we don't want to have a part of, right? He was able to deal with things in his soul and realize, oh, this was the hand of God. This is what he meant. This is what it took for people to come and bow down to me, not in worship, but in honor. This is what it was going to take. He had no concept. When he had those dreams, he had no remote idea of what it was going to mean, the working out of those dreams. And haven't we had prophetic words that we look at them and we say, I don't know how that's ever going to happen. But you know that's going to have to be God if it does happen. Because there's no feasible human way I can make that happen. And so prophecy is that. It's revealing to you those intents, those purposes, those plans that Abba has for your life and the life of those around you, that he is yet unfolding. He is yet revealing. And those who are hungry for it, they'll get in and search it out and dig. Okay. Well, I want to tell you a little bit about this banner. No, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Let's go back to VaYigash. You want to go ahead and put VaYigash back up there, and we'll do the walkthrough here. Okay, so Judah is drawing nigh to Joseph, and he gives himself as a slave. He's pleading intercession. Do you see that it was intercession he was making on behalf of Benjamin? Okay. So he, like Moses, is being an intercessor on behalf of his household for the release of Benjamin for Jacob's sake. Why for Jacob's sake? Now, I'm the type of person, I like interaction, so you're not going to throw me off. Why for Jacob's sake? Why is this Benjamin being released is going to be for Jacob's sake? He thinks he lost Joseph, doesn't he? Yeah. And so he's already been grieving for his favorite child. And now the only other child he has with his favorite wife, this one's going to be taken away. And wouldn't that cause you some heart problems? Yeah. And I don't mean necessarily physical heart either. Okay, Joseph clears the room and reveals himself as Joseph, their brother. And this is the time when he says, you meant it for other purposes. You didn't mean it for good. But God was in the midst of this. God was the one behind this. To reassure them, because they're thinking, okay, once Jacob's out of the picture, he's going to retaliate. Isn't that what we'd think? I have a very fresh, raw ache in my heart that has been going on for 2.5 years. A place where I went to my granddaughter's wedding in Florida. Gary and I renewed our vows in Florida under the chuppah, and we did here too, and Debbie and Curtis were there. And while I was at the wedding, my younger sister, who has become very close to my daughter, from my perspective, I'll come from my perspective, looked like she was moving in to take Mom's place. I'm the grandma. I'm the mother of the, not the bride-to-be, but the mother of the bride-to-be. And so I'm thinking that there's a certain place that Mom should have, but Sister took it. And I don't usually have issues with jealousy, but oh my gosh, jealousy with the biggest green eyes you ever want to meet. And I acknowledged to my sister at one point in time that I was jealous over the fact that it seemed like she was trying to move into, now you might think this has nothing to do with the lesson, it has everything to do with the lesson, that she was trying to move into what I perceived to be my place. And the pain in my heart, and to compound the whole thing was, I always thought Debbie was my best friend. All my growing up life, I considered her my best friend. She and I did things, we were very creative, we would talk to each other, we'd get each other stirred up. And when all this went down, I was in the process, I'd been losing my sister. Because she was no longer putting the affection toward me, the affection was being turned to my daughter, which I didn't mind her having a relationship with my daughter, but just don't nudge me out. Don't push me out of the whole thing. And so at the wedding, it was compounded. We sat on the back row. Debbie and her husband sat on the front row. And the pain in my heart, I had already been grieving the fact that I had lost my sister for several years because I'd expressed the fact that, I'm the one that's making all the phone calls, folks, and nobody's calling me. It makes me feel like you don't want my phone calls. And so therefore, I won't be calling unless you call me. And I don't think they believed it. And we would go for months and months, and I was calling every week. And so I was in that place of pain from that relationship already, grieving that I'd lost my sister, lost my best friend. What I have come to realize is it was not losing my best friend. It was me coming to a reality check that you thought she was your best friend, but that's not how she saw it. And so I was having to adjust my whole way I interacted with Debbie. But the straw happened at the wedding for my granddaughter. And Debbie and I have not talked for 2.5 years. You're talking to someone who called her every week, there for a while, and would talk many times during the week, when we were. And so to go from that to nothing, the pain, I guess everybody here in the room has had areas where you've had rejection and you have felt like you were the odd man out, or people didn't want you around, or, people were thinking yada, 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 all this stuff. And that's that pain in there. And although the circumstances would not be something I would want to go over again, I see, like Joseph, took me a little longer than him. He was 30, I'm 68. That this was Abba's hand. Because he's trying to get to a pain. He's trying to get to a pocket in my heart that he could not reach any other way. And that helps you come to grips with the bitterness and the unforgiveness. Because now, if it's Abba doing this, it's not aimed at the person that you perceive to be the one doing it, right? So I have gotten very excited because 2.5 years and we're going home to Oklahoma City the end of December for my grandson's wedding. Deja vu. Here we are, and I'm trying to prepare myself for this. But Abba, I believe, has given me a plan because I want reconciliation with my sister. Frankly, Scarlett, it's not worth it. And I want reconciliation. And when people are offended, it's just easier just not to do anything. It's easier not to try to break down the wall. It's easier not to try to figure out what to do for the hearts to not be hard against each other and all that stuff. And he started stirring in me. The desire of Debbie's heart has been to have China. And out of all the deaths in the family, Debbie she was the last born, she's never gotten China. Even her own children have not gotten her China. And so I believe I have been searching for a month or more, looking for the kind of China that I last knew Debbie wanted. And this last weekend, I was able to go and purchase the China. Now that sounds like a small thing. That was $100. That was not a small thing. But what I believe it'll do for Debbie's heart is what I was after. Because I'm trying to say, Debbie, I want you to have the desires of your heart. I'll do what I can to let the Holy Spirit deal with me with what's going on with my heart. But I want you to have something you've longed for that you have not been able to have. And if it's $100, oh well, I'd rather have a sister. So Abba started showing me some things. Now this has not got too much to do with where we are right here, but it's one of the places I wanted to go to that has been going on with me since April of this year. And I dare say before that. Because when I came to the reality that Debbie acting that way toward me was not her but Abba getting to something in me, he's been after this for a good long time. Because I've had more than one experience with this. And many times what it causes me to do is to turn and go the other direction. Isn't that what we saw Isaac do when it came to the wells? Now, we didn't get that lesson here. That was the one we missed. But isn't that what Isaac did? He followed suit like Abraham. He decided he was going to leave rather than stay in this place of strife and this place of contention and this place of animosity. He would leave to keep peace. Because they were saying to him, and see, I'm going into that lesson. I can't get to this one. Okay, we'll try this one later. The wells are something that has been going on in me for a good long time, and I haven't even been aware of it. Scott, you remember Scott, last April, I was getting ready to go to Israel, and I was making a banner. And I guess, Curtis, we're going to go with this because I can't get into that. It's just not working. It's not working for me. Oh, I gave you the rest of my notes, did I? Or did I? If you find some that are empty, they're mine. Okay, I've got them, never mind. This banner on the front of this page, was the banner that I was trying to make to take to Israel. I was supposed to be one of their speakers, and I was having a hard time with this banner. I've been making banners since the mid-'80s, and I could not get the spring to come up out of the banner, out of the well. You'll see the subject matter on here is Spring Up, O Well. And I had the well, and I had the river for the well to flow into, but I could not get it to spring up and it not look hokey. Did everybody get one?
No.
Jerry didn't get one. Is there enough? Okay. I could not get the banner to spring up. And so I heard the Spirit of Abba say inside my heart, what's blocking the well? And so, being the spiritual person I am, I came running to Torah. And I said, folks, I am supposed to leave tomorrow morning. I cannot get this banner done. And I'm supposed to speak over there. And I can't even get my message. I need prayer. And Scott says to me, Ladell, I'm not so sure you're supposed to make that banner spring up that well. What? That's my commission. I'm supposed to. They expect me to have this banner made. And what? Don't we do that? He said, no. He said, I think if you can come in the right heart, there's no greater tool to teach with than to show people their sin. What's plugging the well? And so I'm going thinking, okay, I always know a message that Mike gives, a message that Jim gives, I give, Scott gives, it doesn't matter who gives it, it's a two-edged sword. And what goes this way is coming back this way. And you are going to live the message if you're the one delivering it. Trust me. You don't just give lip service to it and then it's unloaded and they have to deal with it. No, no, no. You're gonna be experiencing this message. So I'm trying to find out what's causing the wells to not come up. So I go back to Genesis 26. I didn't even know where it was. I went back to Genesis 26 and I began to dig in the scripture. And that's exactly what he wanted me to do, was get in there and dig, because see, he had something for me here. He wanted to tap into something that was blocking my well. Gary and I had been in fight after fight after fight. That's what happens when I'm stressed. I think that must happen with a lot of people. Me trying to get out the door, me trying to get my lesson, we're trying to look for a house. I mean, I've got all these splinters going out here, and how do I expect to have this well? Never mind the message. And I'm saying, Abba, I've got no right to go up there to Israel, to Beersheba, and stand in front of those people and tell them anything. What do you mean? He knows that I endeavor to be transparent. He knows if he's trying to get something home to me, I will give witness to it no matter how foolish I look. I don't care. Like it, not like it, talk about me, not talk about me, I don't care. He's trying to get me free of the fear of man's face. The only way to get free of the fear of man's face is to learn to fear God. When you fear him more than you fear man, it won't matter anymore. So I'm still in the transition. But in the meantime, Gary and I are fighting. I mean, my personality, I'm just like that. When I am strained and stressed and you cross me, that's what's going to happen. I'm sorry to say, I have not arrived. I'm not like Yeshua in that manner yet. And so, what's causing the well? So let's start on page 2. Well, no, let's start at the bottom of page 1. And there was a famine in the land besides the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went unto Abimelech, king of the Philistines, unto Gerar. And the Lord appeared unto him. Now, am I understanding this, that Isaac is at Gerar, and the Lord is appearing to him? So that'd be a place where God is revealing himself to him? This would be a place I'd want to go back to, would you? If you know you can find God there, I would definitely go back there. And the Lord appeared unto him and said, Go not down to Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell you of. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you, and will bless you. Now, I numbered these so you could see the different things that Abba is giving promise to. I will bless you. I will be with you. I'll be with your seed and your seed's seed. By the way, these are covenant terms. When you're talking covenant, It's to you, to your seed's seed, henceforth and forever for an eternal covenant. I will give all these countries, that's the third one, I will perform the oath which I swear unto Abraham your father. Number 5, I will make your seed to multiply as the stars of heaven. Number 6, I will give unto your seed all these countries, and your seed, number 7, shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. Now you see that word mixed? I was so excited. I have this. Scott, would you hold up this Bible right here? If I cross the zone, it'll buzz at me. That brown one. I think that's it. Yeah, if you'll hold that up. I was reading in this Restoration Scriptures, and in Genesis 12:3, it's talking about, all the nations of the earth would be blessed. And in this Bible, it says mixed. Well, now wait a minute. There's a big difference between mixed and blessed. Yeah. And so it caused me to go to the internet and start searching this thing out. These people have taken this back to the Hebrew. And the Hebrew, many times, they'll give you a Strong's reference point, then you go to the second Strong's reference point, and you trace that down until you get to the root of the word. And they have found the root of the word that only has happened 5 times in Torah. And this word is the root of barak, which means to bless, but it means to intermingle, to be mixed with, to be engrafted. Woohoo! All the nations of the earth will be engrafted with the seed of Abraham. Why do you think I sing this song, Awake, O Israel? Because I know we've got Israel here in our midst. Israel is in the church. She doesn't know she's in the church. She is following the lead to draw nigh to God. And she's going the only way she knows to go. Because she's lost her identity. She's part of the 10 tribes, but she's no longer living like part of the 10 tribes. She's gone into the diaspora. She's picked up every culture, every form of religion, every belief system out there, and some of them no belief system. But she's feeling a drawing. And for that shofar to be glowing, that will begin to stir. When you've got that seed of Abraham on the inside of you, it'll begin to stir you. You may not have understanding what's going on up here. But you're uncomfortable. You have to do something different. You can't do this like this anymore. Gary and I left the church in 1997, actually 96, because I was in that place. I can't do this anymore. And now as we've come out and we've gone into Messianic, we've gone into Hebrew roots, we've gone into different things, I'm beginning to see that he's trying to stir the body of Messiah up to come out from her. The places where we have mingled with Babylon, the places where we have mingled with the world, the places where we have become contaminated. And he's saying, I'm wanting to separate the precious from the vile and the holy from the profane. And when you hear that shofar sound, it's going to stir in those hearts that carry that seed. And they're going to want to draw nigh. They're going to want to respond to that. If you have any heart for Israel, you never know. You might be part of Israel. I'm not saying everybody is, but he says Abraham's seed is going to mix with every. That's every. Okay. Now, one of the things they did do with these researches that I saw, not everybody that hears the message will believe. To those who won't believe, not going to matter to them. Verse 5. Because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, my law. You see those 5 points? He obeyed my voice, he kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, my laws. This is why God says, I will bless him. We're going to find out that blessing isn't even just only Abraham. It goes down to Isaac. It goes down to Jacob. It goes down to all of Jacob's children. It goes down to the seed. That's what eternal covenants do. They keep going. God is faithful to his covenant even when we're not. And Isaac dwelt in Gerar. And the men of the place asked him of his wife. Now, does this sound familiar? They want to know about her, and he says, she's my sister. For he feared to say she's my wife, lest, said he, the men of the place should kill me for Rebekah, because she was fair to look upon. Now, who else did that? Would that be Abraham and Sarah? Same place, folks. Gerar. Abimelech is his name, the king. Avi is father, Melech is king. The king is the father. That's what Abimelech means. His father was named Abimelech. His father encountered Sarah and Abraham. And Abraham told him, she's my sister. Well, it was a half-truth because she was his half-sister. But Rebekah, she wasn't even in the ballpark. Verse 8, and it came to pass when he had been there a long time that Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out a window and saw, and behold, Isaac was sporting with Rebekah his wife. Yes, they were playing around. And Abimelech called Isaac and said, behold, of a surety, she is your wife. Why did you say she's my sister? And Isaac said unto him, because I said that lest I die for her. And Abimelech said, what is this thou hast done to us? One of my people might have lain lightly with your wife, and thou should have brought guilt upon us. And Abimelech charged all his people, saying, he that touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. Then Isaac sowed in that land and received in the same year, somebody read that to me, 100-fold? Is that 100%? 100-fold. What is it? Is it 100%? 100. Okay? You fold something over, you double it. That's 1 fold. You double it again, that's 2. You double it again, that's 3. I don't think it's even times. I think it's to the power of. 100-fold, right? Wouldn't it be to the power of? I don't know that much about math. Gary'd have to confirm it, and he's ignoring me. Okay. Join the club. 100-fold in that year, and I'm trying to find which verse that was, and I've lost it. Okay? And the Lord blessed him, and the man waxed great and went forward and grew until he became a very great, okay, those colons must be a great group of people or nation. I left something out. For he had possession of flocks and possession of herds and great store of servants. The Philistines envied. Now, I highlight this because I'm trying to, when I read Scripture, I'm trying to dissect it to understand. So when I see envy here, oops, jealousy and envy are kissing cousins. I already know what envy and jealousy feels like. And so that's where these people were. Genesis 26:15, for all the wells which his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham his father, the Philistines had what? Stopped them up, filled them with dirt or earth. And Abimelech said unto Isaac, go from us, for you are much mightier than we. And Isaac departed and pitched his tent. Now, the only reason I'm reading this through is for the sake of the recording, because I want this on here. Isaac departed thence and pitched his tent in the valley of Gerar and dwelt there. Did I lose something? Okay. So they're filling up the wells with the dirt, and the king says, get out of here. We don't want you here anymore. Do you know why they were so worried about the children of Israel having wells? See, our culture, we turn on the faucet and we got water. You go to the desert, there is no form of water in the desert unless you can see it. There's nothing there. So if you're going to have life, if you're going to live, if you're going to water your crops, if you're going to grow your crops, if you're going to do anything, you have to have water. Water is your staple. And see, in our mindset, we don't have to live that way. The only time we're worried about water is when they ration us and say we can't use it. Right? Or we have a broken pipe and we got to turn it off. These people lived day to day for whether or not they had enough water, because this was their lifeline. This was life itself. And without water, it's over, folks. Okay? So Isaac, he left. He went to Gerar, to the valley there, and Isaac dug again for the wells of water, which they had dug in the days of Abraham his father. The Philistines had stopped them with the death of Abraham, and he called their names after the names by which his father had called them. Isaac's servants digged in the valley and found there a well of springing water. Now, to me, if you're saying springing water versus just a well of water, then stagnant water is not necessarily living water. If it's springing, then there's life, right? Okay. And the herdsman of Gerar did strive with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, the water is ours. And he called the name of the place Essex, because they strove with him. Now, Scripture defines what that word means. Because they strove with him, it is called Essex. And that's right. And they digged another well and strove for that also, and he called the name of it Sitnah. Now, the name of the well Sitnah, it's also strife, but it goes deeper. It has to do with enmity. Anybody ever had anybody have enmity against you? I've got an ongoing thing going right now with a sister in the Lord. That she says to me one day, forgive me for my enmity, my silliness. And I'm thinking, I wouldn't call silliness, enmity and silliness in the same sentence, I'm sorry. But anyway, so I know what it is to have enmity. This is not going to be a good time, nor are you going to get along very well. Okay, so Sitnah means enmity, and he removed from thence and digged another well, and for that they strove not, and he called the name of it Rehoboth. And he said, for now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. And he went up from there to Beersheba. The Lord appeared unto him the same night and said, I am the God of Abraham your father, fear not. I am with you, I will bless you, multiply your seed. Now do you see where the Lord is affirming the covenant to Isaac? It's one thing for your folks to be in covenant with Abba. It's another thing for you to be in covenant with Abba. And in everybody's life, you have to come to the place where it's a covenant with you and him. Not through your parents, not through your wife, not through your husband. It's with you and him. So here Abba is affirming his covenant with Isaac, and Isaac built an altar there and called upon the name of the Lord and pitched his tent there, and Isaac's servants digged a well. Well, this is familiar. This is now the fourth well. And Abimelech went to him in Gerar, and this guy, Ahuzzath, one of the friends, and Pichol, the captain, chief captain of the army. Isaac said unto him, wherefore come you to me, seeing you hate me, and have sent me away from you? Now, I would dare say that if somebody had enmity with you, wouldn't you say it's probably a pretty good idea, probably a pretty good analysis that they probably do hate you for some reason, that there's some problems there? And they said, we saw clearly, certainly, that the Lord was with you, and we said, let there be now an oath betwixt us, even betwixt us and thee, let us make a covenant with you, and you will do us no harm, as we have not touched you, we have not done anything unto you but good, and we've sent you away in peace. Thou art the blessed of the Lord. So here we see the same thing happening with Abimelech that happened with Abraham and Abimelech. They came and cut covenant because they were quarreling over the wells. And at Beersheba, Abraham says, okay, we're going to make covenant here, and I'm going to kill these 7 lambs to prove this is my well. So they gave it up, the Philistines, and he made them a feast. The Philistines made a feast, and they ate and drank. So this is Isaac being treated by the Philistines to a feast. They rose up between times in the morning and swore one to another. Isaac sent them away, and they departed from him in peace. Came to pass the same day that Isaac's servants came and told him concerning the well which he had digged, and said unto him, we have found water. And he called it Sheba. Therefore the name of the city is Beersheba to this day. Now one thing you'll see in Hebrew is that the letter V and B are interchangeable. So you'll hear people say Beersheba or Beersheba, depending on which way they're going with it. Same word. Esau was 40 years old, and he took to wife Judith, the daughter of Beri the Hittite. Don't you know his folks were happy? And why? Why would that matter to his folks if he took a Hittite wife? Do you remember what they were charged? What they were commanded? They were told not to marry with foreign wives, right? Okay. And Bathsheba, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, which were a grief of mind unto Isaac and to Rebekah. Now, I want to break this down. I started not only asking, and this was one of those, you hear it in the Spirit, and he's saying, wonder what the names of those wells meant. And I'm seeing that it's strife, it's enmity, but when I go deeper, I'm seeing that it connects to the same word that we get the word Satan from. The opposer. the one who carries hate. This is the word for that second well, Sitna. Goes back to Satan. Now, the word Philistine, you're going to find out the word Philistine means to wallow in self. You won't get that on the first Strong's number. You don't get it on the second Strong's number. You get it when you get to the root. It means to wallow in self. So what are they filling the wells with? It's the earth, but I'm seeing a parallel here. I'm seeing a symbolism where the wallowing in self is plugging into these wells. If we're supposed to have rivers of living water running out of us, right? And those wells are plugged because of jealousy or envy or enmity or anger or unforgiveness or bitterness or whatever, blocking the wells. Are we going to have life flow for others? Not even life flow for ourselves, will we? And we get to be, if we continue in that pattern, we become bitter old women or bitter old men, depending on what we give ourselves to. So Abba is trying to show us what's in our heart. What's plugging your well? What's in there that's unresolved? The conflict that you need to go in and dig it out. And when they dig the wells, they're talking about using something to get down in there, to get down to the source of the water. You got to get all that earth out of the way. You got to get all that place where wallowing in self is in the road to find out what's going on. Gerar. Now, there's some interesting things about Gerar. And what I've done on this page, you may not understand what I'm doing, but I'm giving you the Strong's numbers, and then I'm taking it to the next reference and the next reference, and I don't always make it clear which one we're talking about. That's something I need to go back and work on. Gerar, 1642. Probably from 1641, rolling country, Gerar, a Philistine city. And that's about as far as I saw, and that's about as far as I went the first time I started looking at it. And so finally I went to 1641 to drag off roughly. Ooh, now this looks more like we're getting into some stuff, doesn't it? By implication, to bring up the cud. What does it mean to chew the cud? Keep thinking about it. It's the term we use for meditation. You know, when I was a young believer, I said, Abba, I'd read Joshua 1, and he says, meditate in the Word day and night and all this. And I said, Abba, I don't know how to meditate. He said, do you know how to worry? That one I got covered. So it's worrying the Word. It's worrying. You're taking that thing, looking at it from every perspective, every angle, and you're reflecting and you're thinking, right? Okay? So this is Gerar. This is the place where Isaac has been sent to live now. This is the place where he can ruminate. What do you think he's chewing on? We use the word in Psalms, Selah. Pause and calmly think of that. That's that same thing, to ruminate. I say it wrong. To meditate and think about it. And what does this mean? But you know what? He's had God reveal himself to him. He's had God come through with covenant promises. He's watching them unfold right before his eyes. Wouldn't you think he would be thinking about all the different things that God has said to him and implied to him through his seed? This is the source of believing. It's when it's no longer just thought processes here. But this is the place where now it's going to start registering in our heart. Part of our struggle as believers is getting our heart, our soul, in line with our spirit. So our mind, will, and emotions for the soul. Many times the mind wants to do something, the will wants to be over here, wants to do its own thing, wants to do the things of the world. And the spirit is saying, no, no, no. You saw me struggling up here trying to get back to this VaYigash. It's that. He's wanting us to yield to the process, right? And quit resisting. So when you get yourself in line with the things of the Spirit, then you're going to hit the gusher. You're going to hit the water flow. Just a side note. David, when he was developing the instruments of worship, there's one of the individuals named Jubal. And they crafted some instruments for praise. Jubal is the word that we get jubilee from. And it means to create a water flow. And isn't that what we want in praise and worship? Don't we want to get into that water flow and just come into that life-giving spirit of Abba? I also believe he's looking for those who will worship him in spirit and in truth and will Sing to him and not about him. Think back when you were in your intimate relationships, husband, wife, whatever. You spent time with that individual face to face. You spoke to them. If Yeshua is inhabiting the praise of his people, and if Yahweh is inhabiting the praises of his people, he's here in our midst. To sing about him when he's right here, wouldn't that be like me doing that to you? Can't you talk to me? And sometimes I feel that in his heart. He's saying, can't you just talk to me? It's wonderful you're thinking about me, but talk to me. I want one-on-one. I want face-to-face. Panayim to panayim. I want to know you that way, in that intimate way. Okay, so we are at Gerar. This is the place of meditation. This is the place that I believe Isaac began to mature in the things of the Spirit. Because he had some hard places. I mean, he's been rejected, what, twice over these wells? Have you thought about his name, Isaac? We say it means laughter, don't we? You know, there's more than one kind of laughter. There's a laughter that comes when you're happy and, oh, that's funny. Debbie and I had one of those this morning. We won't go the rest of the way, Deb. But then there's the one that says, yeah, ha ha ha. Now, what kind of laughter is that? That's mocking. Mocking and scornful. So was he laughter, ha ha, happy? Or was he laughter, yeah, right? And I can just see Sarah standing there saying, oh, sure, I'm 90 years old and you say I'm going to have a baby. Yeah, I believe that. And she laughed within herself. Okay, so just to kind of get us out of that thinking, oh, laughter. And we give it one value and that's it. Okay, so the well of the oath, Beersheba. It's a place in Palestine. You'll find that a lot in the Strongs. Drives me up a wall. You get down to 7650, a prime route, to be complete. Now here we are in Beersheba, to be complete. Now this was the place where the conference was going on. Beersheba, the place of the oath. This is the place where covenant was being realized. This was the place where God confirmed his covenant to Abraham and to Isaac. It's a pretty significant place. Used only as a denominative from 7651 to seven oneself. Have you ever heard anybody say to seven oneself? I've never heard that. And I'm thinking about that. What in the world to seven oneself? What does that mean? It ties into covenant. You're entering into covenant. In this case, Isaac is giving, or Abraham, whichever, is giving the 7 she-lambs to confirm the covenant, so you're seven oneself. But then you think about, what does 7 mean? 7 means maturity. Some say it means divine completion. So if you're sevening yourself, would it be a place where you're entering into the maturity of the things of the Spirit? Just like we saw with Joseph, where he had to come into the things of the Spirit to see that God had done this and not his brothers. Yeah, they carried out, but it was from Father. Okay, to seven oneself, to swear as if by repeating a declaration 7 times with an oath, to feed to the full. Now this is one of these that I'm going to have to rudimente, you see, because I see it's got some hidden things here. And I want to know the depth of it. My understanding is not lightened here. I don't have enough information here to get to an understanding with it. But it's definitely got me on a track to saying there's more there. It's like knowing you've got the tip of the iceberg and there's a whole big iceberg down there. And what does this thing mean, Abba? So it's one that I know he'll be taking me into deeper and deeper. Now, Beersheba comes from 2 words. Sheva is the one we just looked at. Bear is the one that we use for well. It can mean a pit as well as a well. You remember when Joseph was thrown into the pit and it had no water? Now, why would it say he was thrown in a pit with no water? I don't think about pits having water. It was a well, an empty, dry well. And I'm saying, oh, so we've got wells going on in more places than what we ordinarily, we don't think to look for wells. That's not our culture these days, but their culture it was. To declare is one of the renderings for bar, comes from 874. To dig, yes. To engrave. To explain. To make plain. To declare. This is all part of bear, the well. So when you have places in Scripture that it's not clear to you what's going on, sometimes it's because we've got the wrong definition on the word. And in some situations, there might be a different rendering for that particular situation. So you can't use one form, bear, well. No, it might mean to declare. It might mean to make it plain. See, there's other reasons why we might be using that word. Down to 5640. These are just some definitions that I felt were important. A prime root, to stop up. Now this is where they stopped up the wells. By implication, to repair, figuratively to keep secret, closed up, hidden, shut up or shut out, or to stop. And I'm thinking about, over the years, how the Scriptures, much of the understanding of the Scriptures has been hidden. And he's waiting for those people who will get in and dig out the meaning of those Scriptures, right? Let me give you one that I think is just too... Scott, if I can get you to help me. Would you bring that board over here? I know that thing's going to go off on me. I want to show you one. When I saw this, I had a fit. Of course, you know that's not hard for me. But it's one of those nuggets when I dig out something that I've never seen before and haven't necessarily heard people say it. Yeah, those markers, I guess, are over there too. Okay. Let's talk about Judah a minute. Thank you. Who was Judah? Do you know which one? The fourth-born son. And the word Judah, what does that render usually? Praise, okay. You spell Judah, Yod, Hey, Vav, Dalet, Hey. Can you see? You can't see. Okay, y'all have to take turns for a minute. Okay? Can you see it? Now, if I take this out, this Dalet, what does that spell? Yahweh. The Jews have had Yahweh hidden in their name since the beginning. Now, what does the letter Dalet mean? I know Jim knows. What does the letter Dalet mean? What is Yeshua? He's the door, is he not? Dalet means door. So when you take the Dalet out of Yehuda, you get Yahweh. And who is the door to salvation? Yeshua, Messiah, you bet. This is fascinating to me. When I find these little nuggets like this, I'm just saying, oh yeah, give me some more of that. I just want God. I want all you. Because he does things in so many different layers, and he's got so many things ready to reveal to us if we will just get in there and dig. So this is one of those situations where something is hidden. It might be that these Philistines didn't want people to know where those wells were. Yeah, they filled them up with earth, but they didn't want them to know where the wells were. Why? Why would they not want people to know where wells were? Yeah, they were afraid other people would use up the water and then they wouldn't have any. And they would die. No water, no life. No water, no crops. No water, no flocks. Nothing, right? So they were afraid. Okay, Nakal, 51:58. It comes from 51:57. Its original sense, a stream. Now this is where he's talking about he went into the valley of Gerar versus the town or the community of Gerar. Went into the valley, and it talks about it springing up with living water. So here we have another example of living water. You're talking the desert. This is desert, barren, nothing. And I have a picture down here to prove it. That picture down there at the bottom. Okay, a narrow valley in which a brook runs, also a shaft of a mine. Now see, I picture a shaft of a mine looking like a well. the mouth of a well at least. Brook, flood, river, stream, valley, nakal. A prime root, to inherit. So when we go back and start searching out these scriptures about the wells, we're going back to things that deal with our inheritance, our spiritual heritage. Don't we want to lay hold of the goodness and the fatness of the root of the olive tree? Don't we want to partake of what the olive tree has for the Jews as well as them? Absolutely. It's a tree of life. Okay. So to inherit, a mode of descent, generally to occupy, to bequeath, distribute, divide, have inheritance, take a heritage. Inherit, distribute, divide, leave, take for an inheritance, possession. So, how do we write the word high? What does the word high mean? Do you know? Life. High. Different from this letter, isn't it? Not the same letter at all. This one's like an H sound. I'm sorry, Scott. This is like an H sound. This is like a H sound. A hard H at the back of your throat. High. Life. So we're dealing with these wells and these valleys with living water, lifeline. When we toast with the Hebrew, when we do the Hebrew blessing over the wine, we toast lahaim. Why? To life. You know, you can say salute, cheers. I'd rather say to life. I'd rather say to your life. May you have a good life, abundant life, a life worth living. Okay, from the word 24:21, alive. Doesn't he say he's coming to give us life and life more abundantly? Have you tapped into the abundant life yet? I'm not realizing all that's out there. I've got some. I'm a believer. I've got some, but I want it all. Of course, he knows it'd be a flood and then I'd drown. No. Okay. Alive, raw, fresh, plant, water, year, strong, especially in the feminine singular and masculine plural, life, living thing, appetite, wild beast. So we're getting into living creature. We're getting into some other renderings, aren't we? This goes into 24:21. You'll see that goes into the promise of life to restore and to revive. So here he is in a land where he is ruminating about the goodness of God. He is ruminating about the promises that God has made to him. He's in a place of having life. He's increasing 100-fold in the first year. He's increased with goods, with people, servants, with animals, with livestock. I mean, he's got the blessing going on. And he's watching God pour out on him in the time of famine. I can't stress that enough. This man is tapping into wells when there's famine. There's not water out there. And Abba is showing him the water. Now see, I want to find those places of living water. And so here I did this little picture. To me, that represents a good well over in Israel. Essek, and again, I'm going to just define there for you again what these renderings mean, what these definitions mean. Now I know this can get laborious, but again, for Sitnah, the second well, opposition and hatred, the same root form that we get Satan from. Sitnah, opposition, hatred, enmity. That's part of what that word means. But they didn't stop there. They went to the third well, and Gary and I have just experienced this. We lived in Arlington right at 8 years. Arlington was a place where our driveway was so tight that if you didn't watch what you were doing, and we had one person who did it, your wheel goes off the concrete and it's spinning and you're off in the ditch. Plus, when you got to the back of our driveway, our garage was at the back and you had to make this curve to come into the driveway at the back. Tight, tight, tight. The kitchen was tight. Everything in the house felt tight. And this word means a broad place, Rehoboth. It means now that they're not going to contend for the water anymore. You can relax and you can live. You can be who you are in this place in Rehoboth, however you say that word. And then it takes it into some of the different renderings to make room for. So this is a place where God says, I'm making room for you and your seed. The Israelites don't have to fight anymore for their water. They don't have to fight to stay there. You can be who you are. We embrace you for who you are. We want you to be who you are. Then we're going to come to the place where Isaac builds an altar of worship. So I'm always looking for what these words mean, because there's so many times we find things in these words that we had no idea were there. And again, this next page, page 8, is just more of the same thing. Now, 3772, we're going into the thing of covenant. And this is one of the things that I'd like to get into here. And Curtis, when we get into some of this on the covenant, we will have some of the slides on VaYigash that has covenant in there. Okay, if you will start looking to see where those are. Okay, karath is one of the words meaning to cut covenant, typically to pass between the pieces, cutting the flesh. Covenant is to cut. And then 1285 is another word for covenant. This is the one that we usually get the word covenant from, in the sense of cutting again. It's a compact because it's made by passing between the pieces of flesh. Do you remember when Abraham and God were going to enter into covenant? No, it wasn't Abraham, it was Adam. When Adam and God were entering into covenant, and he cut the pieces in half, or was that Abraham? And they walked in the field of blood, in the figure 8, between the pieces of the animal. And usually when you enter into covenant like that, you're pointing to this dead animal, and you say, if I transgress this covenant, may it be done unto me like this animal is. So you're drawing an oath to yourself. I will cut it, I will keep this covenant to death, my death. And if I don't keep it to death, death is what comes. So this is part of what that walking in that field of blood between the pieces is about. Now the word shalom, this is what he said, I sent you off in shalom. When the Philistines left Gerar and left Isaac there with the tribes of Israel, they left them in shalom, in peace. Look at this. From 7999, it means safe. When you see the word salvation, you hear me talk about the word salvation: safety, soundness, healing, deliverance, preservation, prosperity, restoration, victory, peace, welfare. All of that is contained. If you go into the roots of your words for salvation, you'll have all of those definitions. Well, look at how close shalom comes. Safe, well, happy, friendly, welfare, health, prosperity. I mean, isn't that a lot of what we're saying with salvation? Peace, familiar, health, perfect, prosperous, welfare, holy, W-H-O-L-L-Y. And isn't that what we're about? Wanting to be wholly saved, bringing our spirit and our soul into agreement with each other, because the spirit and the soul war against each other, until we renew the mind sufficiently that now we've got the spirit and the soul in agreement with one another. That's when you have the state of echad, the one. And isn't that what Abba wants us to be doing with him? When we agree with his word, when we have his word committed to in our hearts, that we will obey, we will do, that's when we become one with him and one with one another. Now we're going to be taking, let's go into some of this. Covenant. Can you see if I'm standing here? There's a difference between the word covenant and contract. Contract, you're looking for what your rights are. You're not looking for responsibility. But with covenant, it's the place of responsibility and you're giving up your rights. So it's covenant and contract are not the same word. It's between men. It can be between God and man. It can be between God and the land, for that reason, for that most. Divine ordinance with signs or pledges, covenant making, covenant keeping, and violation. There's going to be another one, Curtis, that talks about the different parts of the covenant. There's many kinds of covenant. Let's do that first. We know about, that one's fine. You can go back to that. The Adamic covenant, which is going to be with Yahweh and Adam. Now, I only went over a few. This is not all of them. The Noahite covenant, we see the rainbow in the sky. That's the Noahite covenant. It's going to be with Noah and the beast of the field after the flood. Abrahamic covenant, and I tried to list where that was. It's with Abraham and with Abba. Mosaic covenant is going to be with Israelites and Yahweh, and that was at Mount Sinai. The salt covenant. Now, this is one that I'm going to be going into more and more. There's stuff hidden in that salt covenant. I don't understand it. I know it's there. I want to lay hold of it. I do know when they offer covenant, or when they offer sacrifice on the altar, and when they do the challah at the bread for Shabbat, the bread and the wine, they will sprinkle salt. And Scripture is very plain that without salt, effectually, your sacrifice is not good. So you have to have salt to finish the sacrifice. So there's something about a salt covenant. There's also a threshold covenant that Rico Cortez goes into. And I'm telling you, in the customs, the ancient customs, when they would come to someone's house, they would pour the salt on the threshold. And part of that we saw with the Passover, with the blood on the doorpost of the lintels. That's part of that threshold covenant. So there's stuff there that we have lost with the ancient. Oh, did we get them all? And then the new covenant. Okay. Davidic covenant. This is with the house of David forever. And Yeshua came out of David's line. So it's going to come down through Yeshua. And then the new covenant, which pertains to us as well. We're grafted in. We're mingled, are we not? Abraham's seed mingles with all the people of the earth. And this, to me, is exciting to see that we've got brothers and sisters out here we don't even know. Okay. What's with the wells? I'm saying, Abba, what is all this with the wells? And he began to, and I'm just reinforcing what I've already said, that the water is vital in the desert and in famine. There is no source of water. If you don't see it out there, there's nothing there. You have to dig for it, and you may not find it. So the fact that Isaac kept finding all these wells, and Abba says, I have a living water in you. One of the places that my mind went to, you remember Yeshua was talking to the woman at the well in Samaria? And he says, I have living waters to offer. But you'll not thirst again if you drink of my living waters. Well, she was confused. She's thinking it's a natural well, and he's talking a spiritual thing, right? But he has living waters for us. I want to tap into life abundantly. I want to know where the source is. I want to know how to get there. And so this is part of what's with the wells. But he's also trying to deal with what's going on in my spirit being. Out of our belly shall flow rivers of living water. Okay, on page 10, we're going to get to these terms of the covenant here in a minute. If you'll leave that up, Curtis, thank you. Recognize that enmity comes from jealousy and fear of being displaced. Philistines thought there was not enough water for the Israelites and them. This was certain death for them if that were the case. But I don't believe Abba would have had them coming in, using up all the water and leaving them none. That's just not the way he does it. What does one do in the face of enmity? Let's just think about that. And Brother Jim, feel free to jump in here. When you know that someone has enmity against you, what do? You just slug it out? What? You leave? How though? If two hard-hearted people, a brother offended is worse than trying to take a city, a strong city, a fortified city. So how do you be reconciled to someone if they don't want to be reconciled to you? Enmity. See, they're not interested. Huh? Inwardly, what do? That is the first step, isn't it? Pray for them, but you also have to pray for yourself, don't you? Right. And what does the word grace mean that Mike's been using lately? Divine influence upon the heart reflected through the life. So you'll pray for grace, God's empowerment. I believe Philippians 2:12 and 13 is the best rendering of grace that I've seen. For it is God all the while working within you both to will and to do of His good pleasure. That's His grace. That's His influence on your heart. Okay? So praying for the grace to be able to walk it out.
We pray for God to forgive them of the sin.
Okay.
So that the Spirit can open up their heart.
Definitely it's got to have that heart exchanged in it. One of the other things that I felt like I was seeing through my path trying to search this thing out is that you're searching for wisdom. That's what to do with the knowledge you've been given, wisdom. So if you're assessing your situation, Father, how? Like with my sister, I really believe that God gave me wisdom. He woke me up early, and I'm not one to get up early. And I mean, before 5 o'clock in the morning, he had me up, and I finally got up and went into my office and just started writing because I felt like he was showing me for this reconciliation for Debbie. Buying that china would be the key to break that hard-heartedness that keeps us separate. So finding the wisdom, I'm not saying you have to go buy them. That's not what I'm saying. Abba will give the wisdom in each individual situation how or what you can do to help bring that to a reconciliation. One of the other scriptures I was quickened to is agree with your adversary while you're out in the way. Okay, so if you've got someone accusing you or attacking you, then there's some validity there somewhere. So find out what it is and take your ownership, and I think that's part of what she was talking about. Yes?
I had a situation happen to me between me and my brother's tongue stealing. And the whole thing was when I went back to my room to go to sleep, the Lord said, it doesn't matter what he thinks, it matters what I think about you.
Exactly.
But what he was showing me is to forgive and not be bitter. Because
Right.
bitterness builds a wall
Right.
between the two of you.
Right.
And to just love unconditionally. And when he called me once I got back to Fort Worth, I told him, I said, first of all, you have to understand that I have chosen to love you unconditionally. And that I have no bitterness. And I prayed for you that night. I forgave you immediately. And I really believe that's through Mike's teaching that I was able to do it that quick.
Yes, because it doesn't always happen that quick.
Yeah, and so there was restoration immediately.
Good.
And
One of the other things that I recognize with this particular thing too is recognizing that if that situation's there, it's a test. And that Abba is after something within you as well as what's going on between you and someone else. And so when you recognize, okay, Abba, you're trying to get to something within me, then you can cooperate. With understanding comes obedience. You'll cooperate with the process. If you don't understand the process, if you're in this whirlwind of flesh, wallowing in self, then you're not going to hear the wisdom of how to get free of it, or how to get loose of the unforgiveness, or how to, just a minute, how to get free of that bitterness that wants to come and camp. Yes, Jeff?
Isn't the place of these wells, striving, enmity, problems, opposition, Satan, etc., the sin, the darkness, isn't that the place where we find God's promise, God's oath, the thing that we're looking for, the living water, the hidden things? Doesn't that come precisely in the place where we see the darkness by our natural eye? But with our spiritual eye, we only see hope and blessing and abundance, etc., etc. And isn't that what God is showing us about our lives? That when I show you a stopped up well, or I show you a difficult situation, isn't that where you rejoice that God has something hidden there if you keep next to Him, seek Him, find Him, praise Him, etc.? Aren't those things not to be feared, that someone hates me or someone said enmity or striving with me or whatever, but that actually everything's going our way and He's leading me in triumph if I find what's hidden? In other words, I don't see the dirt, but I see through the dirt.
Exactly.
God's,
You get to the sowed. You get to the sowed level. Yeah. 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 And I believe that's right.
Where I'm having the trouble is the very place where I'm going to see God's revelation.
But I'm also hearing Mike in my ear over here. And those who are spiritually minded. Because, see, you don't get that if you're not spiritually minded. If you're not looking for where God is trying to come through for you. If you're believing the lie that somehow He's trying to punish you or whatever, or He's rejected you or whatever, then those are the kinds, if you can't bear in that flesh thoughts, the self sin nature area, you won't come to that realization. Yeah, but you're right. That's exactly where you want to go. And a well, let's face it, it's dark when you get down into that well. But I know who's down there with me. So looking at the well, it's a type of the Holy Spirit's ministry of life. We can see the progression in our spiritual working out of salvation, recovering. Now, you'll have to do some of my typos here. Recovering our own spiritual heritage revealed through the Israelites. This is part of the reason why we should be concerned about Israel. We are grafted into that olive tree. We learn their example. 1 Corinthians 10, 6 and 11 tells us they're examples for us. A wise man will learn from another person's successes and mistakes. The fool has to repeat it. I don't want to be the fool. I want to learn. I want to be in that place where I can glean from what other persons had gone through, and I can avoid those pitfalls by not doing what they did to get there. The number 7 symbolically references completeness, divinity, maturity. It's associated with covenant and giving an oath or a pledge or a promise. Yeshua ever liveth to make intercession for all of us, that we be conformed to his image and likeness, coming into maturity. So the wells put us in touch with our ancient spiritual heritage through Abraham. We can see the examples of the Israelites' obedience and disobedience if we are wise. We can learn from their mistakes and accomplishments. It saves us reinventing the wheel. The Jews had been faithful to carry and keep Torah all these thousands of years. You know, we can point our finger and really condemn and attack and accuse because they don't see Yeshua. They can't see Yeshua until Abba lifts the veil. We have veils in our own lives, especially if we're part of Israel. We have veils. And until Abba lifts the veil, so when someone does not understand, I don't care who it is up here teaching, if they don't have a part of the puzzle, not pointing the finger and criticizing and judging because they don't have the part, it's praying until Abba reveals the part to them. They can only minister what they have revelation of. And so I've sat under some pastors that ministered other people's revelation. You want it to be their revelation. Okay, so some of the interesting things that I had down here was what we did here on the board. The numeric value of Yahweh is 26. In Hebrew, they assign each letter a number value. When you add it all up for Yahweh, it's 26. Here we have the wells in Genesis 26. I just think that's real cute. Okay, let's look at some of the terms of the covenant. And see, I think I want to really reinforce, because our Western mind does not think covenant. Marriage is covenant. So when you have a hold of Abba, you have Messiah as your Savior. You have an anchor to get you through the places in your marriage that just don't seem to be workable. You anchor to them until he can help you work it out this way. This is the only thing that's kept, I've been married 2 other times. This is the only thing that's kept Gary and I married. Because some of those old patterns from the former marriages want to come back and repeat in this marriage. And by our being unwilling to let go of the covenant, in spite of how we felt about each other, even in times when you feel like you hate them, it's not them you hate, it's the behavior, it's the exchange, it's not them. But your emotions tell you hate them. And so it's for people to know, to lay hold of that faith that Abba can work it out, unless he says enough done. And he knows how to tell you loud enough that you get that message. So you've got terms and conditions of the covenant. This is part of, when you see the ancient covenants, they would exchange robes or coats. That was their station in life. That was their authority, their trade, their job. They would exchange belts. They would hold weapons and armor together with those belts. It gave strength and pledge to strengthen you against your enemies. And one of the things that I have been reflecting about this, if we get a hold of what covenant is, Abba fights our enemies. We can say that here, but we don't usually have it here. Because when we're put in those situations, our emotions get involved in here. We're not seeing that Abba is fighting our enemies. But if we can mix faith with the fact we're in covenant with him, he will fight for us. My enemies are his enemies are my enemies. And so therefore then, this is stand still and see the salvation of God. He's the one that's going to do the fighting. And how many times are we the one in there mixing it up, trying to do the fighting? So we exchange names. Do you see the H in Elohim is given to Abram? He becomes Abraham. Sarai becomes Sarah. It's the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. It's tri-generational. It goes down. If it's an eternal covenant, it keeps going. And so when you pray for your children, to their seed and their seed, henceforth forever, to 1,000 generations, It takes one who's righteous, one who believes Abba, one who will mix faith in Abba's promises to release that over your house. Right? So what's with the wells? You have an answer? Now, on my flash drive, Curtis has the 17 pages of VaYigash that I had for this. You don't want to go over that. So he'll upload that. If you want to get a hold of it, it'll be there. And let me see just real quick if there's anything here that I want to go over before we close. One of the questions I had on the slides was, didn't the church replace Israel? Did the church replace Israel? How come? People say they did. That the Jews have sinned, they crucified Messiah, they can no longer have the blessing of God on them. That's what people say, and the church has replaced Israel. Is that truth? What is one thing we can come back with to prove that God has not replaced Israel with the church? Huh? Romans 11, yes, that's a good one, Deb. Let's turn to Ezekiel 37. This is the Torah portion. And I wouldn't leave this out for nothing. Oh, wow. How could I do this? Ezekiel 37. Yes, that's 37, 15 through 28. Thank you. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Moreover, thou son of man, take thee one stick, and write upon it for Judah and for the children of Israel, his companions, and then take another stick and write upon it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, for all the house of Israel, his companions. Now, why would we be doing this? Why would we do this? Why Ephraim? Why Joseph? What happened with Israel after Solomon? Why? Okay, Solomon sinned. There was other sins, but yeah, that was one of them. Okay, and so Abba split the kingdoms, didn't he? And so the 12 tribes, 10 went north, 2.5 went south, right? Why do we say 2.5? Levi and Benjamin were part of Judah down in the south. So that was one kingdom. The 10 that went north, we call Samaria, Samaritans, the northern kingdoms. So he's saying for Joseph and for Ephraim. Ephraim and Manasseh, we see in one of our last Torah portions, they were given the firstborn blessing, the double portion blessing. Jacob inherited, he didn't inherit, he adopted them, and they became part of his household. So they are part of the 12 tribes, which there's really 14. And Ephraim represents the northern kingdom. Ephraim is the one that primarily went to England and the United States. Ephraim will be the one that they use to term the church, but not to say only the church. There's still Israelites besides the church, okay? For all the house of Israel, his companions, and join them one to another into one stick, that they shall become one in his hand. Now, see, when I see one in his hand, I'm thinking the word echad. I'm thinking one, that we might be, John 17, he said, Yeshua said, Father, that they might be one with you and one with one another. That was his prayer. That's his heart. So here we have an example, like a like a parable. They shall become one in his hand. And what does he do with a stick? Now, this one's a little hard to hold on to. What does he do with a stick? Yeshua. I know Brother Jim knows. He rules and reigns with a stick when he brings those two together. Now, listen, think about Satan. He has done his level best to divide the house. Has he not? He thinks. It was Abba's plan, but he thinks he's done that. And so he's divided the house of Israel, and he thinks they cannot be effective anymore. Do you know the terror that's going to hit Satan when he sees Judah and Ephraim start coming together, where that church is beginning to become one in the Father's hand. Oh my gosh, instead of having enmity right now, Judah and Ephraim have enmity against each other. Instead of the enmity that's there, he's going to have reconciliation. They're going to be covenant brothers. They're going to know covenant, and they're going to walk in it. When the children of your people shall speak unto thee, saying, Wilt thou not show us what this means by these things? Say unto them, Thus says the Lord God, Behold, I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel, his fellows, and will put them with him, even the stick of Judah, and make them one stick, and they shall be one in my hand. And the stick whereupon thou writest shall be in thy hand before your eyes, and say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen. Awake, O Israel. Put off your slumber. Isn't that what we sang? For I've chosen you out of the furnace of affliction. For iron I'll give you silver, and brass I'll give you gold. He's talking about this end time event that we haven't seen in fullness yet. The heathen, whether they are gone, let's see, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen where they have gone, will gather them on every side and bring them into their own land. Is Israel beginning to come back to her land? She is, isn't she? Is everybody back? No. Where are a lot of the people? Where are half of the Jews? Put it that way. United States for sure, but New York City pretty close. I will make them one nation in the hand into the mountains of Israel. One king shall be king to them all. Now, when he's talking about one king being king to them all, he's talking about the Davidic covenant. And Messiah, Yeshua, is the king he's talking about. And they shall no more be two nations, neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms anymore. What does Satan do when he divides the house? He tries to spoil the house. That's what he's trying to do here. He doesn't know. He just fed into Abba's purposes. That's all he did. And that's all he is. He is there to accomplish Abba's purposes. Neither shall they defile themselves any more with their idols. We talked about that, didn't we? Nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions, but I will save them out of all their dwelling places wherein they have sinned, and will cleanse them, and so shall they be my people. Amen is the word in Hebrew. And I will be their God. David, my servant, shall be king over them, and they all shall have one shepherd. They shall also walk in my judgment, observe my statutes, and do them. And they shall dwell in the land that I have given unto Jacob, my servant, wherein your fathers have dwelt. And they shall dwell therein, even they and their children's children forever. And my servant David shall be their prince forever. Moreover, I will make a covenant of what? Peace. That's another one of those scriptures or another one of those reference points that I know an iceberg's under there. A covenant of peace. This is the place where Abba runs the enemy out of the land. We see that when Phinehas killed the ones that were out there having an affair right there at the tabernacle. Covenant of peace. I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them. I will place them and multiply them and set my sanctuary in the midst of them forever. My tabernacle also shall be with them. Yea, I will be their God. They'll be my people. The heathen shall know that I, the Lord, do sanctify Israel, when my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forever. So this is a future event for its fullness. It's a prophetic thing that we can watch Israel. As Israel goes, so goes the church. I chose the big stick for Ephraim because there's more people. And Judah has a fewer number of people. But when that stick's put together, oh my gosh. Thank you, Abba. Now, Debbie was telling me that we have a lot of prayer needs. And we have a few minutes if we want to assemble together. I'm not one that likes to sit and me do all the praying or another person do all the praying. I believe it's supposed to be the house. And so can we form in a circle? Curtis, if I walk that way, is this thing going to buzz at me? It has been every time. Okay. Can we just join in a circle? And Deb, you and Curtis will have to bring the issues of what needs to be prayed if they're not here.